Streaming from Oklahoma's own digital studio, this is Beyond the Bell, brought to you by the Oklahoma Education Impact Initiative.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Beyond the Bell. I'm Tatum Gwynn. I want you to think back to your days of high school. You may have had someone in your life giving you encouragement. Just get that piece of paper, walk the stage, earn your diploma. It's so important. Oklahoma's high school graduation rate currently sits at 80%. The national average is at 87%, and at least 15 states have already crossed the 90% mark. So what would it mean if Oklahoma did the same? There's a new study from the Oklahoma Council of Public Affairs suggesting that raising our graduation rate from 80 to 90% wouldn't just mean more diplomas, it could mean 5,400 more graduates every year, millions in new income, lower crime rates, reduced poverty, and a ripple effect that strengthens the entire state economy. Today, we are digging into the research behind those projections and what it would actually take to get there. Joining me is Jonathan Small. He is the president of the Oklahoma Council of Public Affairs. Jonathan has led OCPA for more than a decade and is nationally recognized for advancing policy solutions focused on economic growth and opportunity. We are also joined by Dr. Ed Harris. He is Professor Emeritus of Educational Leadership at Oklahoma State University and a longtime leader in education innovation. He now serves with the Oklahoma Education Impact Initiative and helps lead the Brock Prize in Education Innovation. Gentlemen, thank you so much for being here today.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
So let's start here at the highest level. Why focus on the graduation rate as a metric? Why is that number so powerful when we're talking about our state's future?
Well, education is the foundation for social and economic infrastructure, just like roads and bridges are the foundation for our physical infrastructure. And the stronger we are in education and the more graduates we have in the workforce, they're going to do better, they're going to have better jobs, they're going to buy more, which will affect the economy. Education also affects the quality of life. And so it's just the foundation for our entire future.
Right now, Oklahoma is at 80%. The national average is at 87%. We are, like I said, some states are already at 90% or higher. Jonathan, is a 10% point jump, is that realistic for our state? Is it aspirational? When you look at that goal, what do you think?
That's a great question. And actually, we think the good news is that is actually attainable. How do we know that? So many other states have been able to reach a point where they are graduating on the average 87%, near 90%. There's a couple of things that Oklahoma must do to get to that level. But as you mentioned, the difference between graduating from high school and not, it means significant differences, what some might call a multiplier effect of the health of an individual, the income that they're going to experience throughout their lifetime, what the future might look like for their kids or other family members. And so it's definitely attainable. It's just going to require some pretty important and focused initiatives that would work their way through the legislature that must be implemented.
Sure. Well, and taking a closer look at the study, which we're going to do, I think it is so fascinating that we look at it as just, or somebody might, as just a piece of paper. But that piece of paper can make the biggest difference when we look at our state socially, economically, and that's really the focus of this study. A 10-point increase would mean roughly about 5,400 more graduates every year. Help us visualize that. How does that fit into our community?
That's a great question. So it's 5,400 jobs, but you're talking about approximately $54 million in extra income for Oklahomans. So if you think about what that could do for the graduate and anyone attached to them and their families. It's also important to remember that in most first world countries, and particularly the United States of America, there's something called the success sequence. And in the United States of America, you tend to have more success if you get a skill. And what getting a skill looks like, it literally is either finishing high school and getting your diploma or getting some sort of certification. And then people that go on to do that and do a couple other things, get a job, and then form a family, 97% of Americans that do that are not in poverty today, of those who start out in poverty but apply those three principles, 75% have moved into the middle class. So it's real change that we're talking about that positively impacts people. And then, of course, the multiplier effect, the economic impact on multiple other facets of our economy obviously increase, given you would have a number of people who would have significantly more income to use as their families need it.
So that brings me to my next question. Walk us through how graduation translates into economic impact. In the study, it's projected to create $145 to $160 million increase in our GDP. Help make sense of that number.
Yeah, great question. So you think about how important small businesses are to Oklahoma. Well, why are they important? A small business is important because of the people that are working there. And so one of the neat things about free societies, as a person spends $1 more somewhere, typically that dollar doesn't stop where they spent it or where they invested it. That dollar then gets invested somewhere else. And so nerdy people like me or economists, they come up with the word multiplier. And what that represents is when any person has more dollars to invest and spend, and they deploy it somewhere. And by more Oklahomans obtaining a high school diploma, it's been proven now for multiple decades, if not more than a century now, that the more people who have high school education or higher, the greater chance they have to pursue economic opportunity for themselves and their family.
And perhaps higher education
Right.
aspirations
Exactly.
as well, and that only benefits the community. Dr. Harris, you've dedicated your entire career to education, pouring into the next generation. When you think about graduation rate and wanting to increase that, what does that mean to you and what you've dedicated your career to?
Oh, well, I think that education is one of the biggest ways that we can help our society. You know, we have a lot of problems. Poverty, homelessness, in our day and time, you know, the number that we have is just not acceptable. Education addresses those issues. If it reduces poverty, it reduces homelessness, and so it's sort of a preventive measure. And so that is one thing. Another thing is our incarceration rates. That's a big thing for so many people. I think we have a world. We've been on the world stage as far as being one of the worst in the world of incarceration, and so I think it reduces that. A person who graduates is less likely to be involved in crime, less likely to be incarcerated. I wanted to go back to, I'm not an economist, I'm an educator. And so that multiplier effect, I had to get a lot of clarification from Jonathan and his team about what that means. And so the way I can understand that very well is because these numbers are very impressive. And so one of the things they said, now, Ed, you need to realize it's not going to be $13 million right the day after they graduate. It's an effect over time. And the way I like to visualize it is like throw a pebble in a pond, and it ripples across the pond. And so there is an initial effect, but then over time that ripples across till it reaches the shores. And so we have, with 80% graduation, we really have sort of a small pebble to put in that pond. And so increasing the graduation rate means that we could have a big rock that could really set ripples, could really impact the entire state.
And it starts with education. When preparing for this episode, the one thing that kept coming to my mind, I had a professor at one point tell me, an education is one of the only things you can do for yourself, and one of the most powerful things you can do for yourself, because it's one of the only things no one can take away from you. Mm-hmm. And so when I think of that, I think of it gives you a sense of purpose and helps you become a productive member of society, and you have the numbers to back that up. But beyond the dollars and cents, how does increasing a graduation rate really change the social fabric of our state?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. And I think one of the things to remember when talking about, what's it mean for more graduates, it's to remember that in our state, our country, in most first world places, you are what would be known as a knowledge-based society. And so our K through 12 public school system in Oklahoma and across the country, it's really how we give people the basic things they need to know so that then they can either go on to college or immediately go into the workforce, and they have skills that they can then utilize on the job. And there's so many things that come out of working that are good for us. There's obviously the personal benefits, but then there's also those tangible benefits. So for example, the reason why high school graduates tend to be in less need of government services is because they're typically in employment that is able to provide them either assistance for college and definitely things like health insurance and some of the other basic needs that people have. And so the great challenge is, then how do we deal with and improve graduation rates in Oklahoma?
Right. Well, graduation doesn't start with 12th grade. There is a whole academic journey to get to that point. So what needs to change in our current system to help us get there, to have more graduates?
Yeah, that's a great and really important question, especially since the legislature is in session right now.
Good timing.
And if you look at Oklahoma's K through 12 system, and I think Ed agrees with me, if there were one thing we could do, one thing lawmakers could focus on, and it would be the literacy challenges that Oklahoma has. We actually rank very poorly in literacy rates. It's through no one's fault. No one's intentionally trying to do that. But there are now states that have proven that if you structure literacy training and teaching kids to read the correct way from pre-K through third grade, that can really make a massive difference in both the trajectory of the rest of the time that student is in school, but then also in their life. It is not a cliche, it really is true. From about pre-K to third grade, you're learning to read. And then from third grade on, you read to learn. And so because Oklahoma, right now, less than 30% of Oklahoma students are reading above grade level. And so when you have that much of a difference, that's really the number one challenge that we're seeing and making it difficult for people to be able to complete high school.
Absolutely. Dr. Harris, how do you help make that connection at the state level? We've talked a lot about reading, and it really is the foundation for learning. We had a whole episode talking about the Mississippi Miracle and how do we take these concepts. A lot of it starts at the state level inside policy, and then it makes its way into the classroom. How do you help make that connection and find the urgency with we need to help start make this change, make it quick, and have that click with lawmakers, the people that are writing that policy?
Sure. I appreciate the question because really graduation is important, but really what's more important is what happens before graduation. It doesn't just start in 12th grade. It needs to start pre-K or kindergarten. And as Jonathan mentioned, reading is important. I'm actually optimistic about a lot of things that are going on in the session, at least from a distance, that will be going on, that OKEII is very much in favor of. I think it was great to get cell phones out of the school, the hindrance, because you can't learn. It's like we're here. If there was a lot of things going on in this room, it would be chaos. It'd be hard for us to communicate and for anybody to get anything out of what we're saying.
Well, and we're also adults, and so we have the discipline to be able to find a way to block out those distractions.
Exactly.
Imagine having to teach that concept to a child when this is that I have my phone with me at all times. I read my scripts from a screen. All of these, we're surrounded by that. So it's the landscape of how you teach a child in 2026 is completely different even from 5 years ago. So it's you see the challenge is there, and Oklahoma has quite a hurdle to jump. However, there's a lot of opportunity, and there seems to be a lot of momentum at the state level to make some meaningful change. We've talked a lot about Mississippi Miracle when it comes to reading. Are there other states that have been able to increase their graduation rate that perhaps Oklahoma could learn some lessons from, or maybe, hey, we could take what they've done and apply that here?
Well, Mississippi's one of them, and I think when Secretary Hamlin was here, he sort of, the people are referring to it as a Mississippi Miracle, and that it was a miracle, but it's also a marathon. It didn't happen overnight, and so Mississippi began doing exactly what we're doing right now, which is a lot of good things that we think are going to be going on. Remove the chaos out of the schools. We need to have better pay for teachers. A teacher, we were talking with some people from Texas, and their best recruitment strategy is to get Oklahoma's best teachers because they can pay them better working conditions and everything. And so we're losing a lot of really good teachers to Texas, Kansas. So we need to make sure that our teachers are well rewarded for what they do, especially those that, well, all of them really. All of the most important person in a child's life when they're at school is the teacher. And so we need to have the best teachers we can there, and we need to reward them.
Let's give them a reason to stay in Oklahoma.
Give them a reason to stay, and that's another reason for the graduation effect. Another thing that does, it brings, and you mentioned, Tatum, that you were always told what that piece of paper does for you and everything. However, what their study shows is that it does. It helps you, it helps the individual, but it helps the entire state. And it helps in every area, in crime, in health, and in all of these areas.
All aspects.
And so an investment in education, like paying our teachers better, doing different things to help in education, is an investment not only just in the schools, but it's an investment in the entire state. We will have better business, more businesses come in. They want to be here because of our school systems. It will those graduates to want to stay in Oklahoma because there's going to be better opportunities for them than in Texas or Kansas or other places. And so it helps everybody. It helps everybody in the state. So even a monetary investment is not only investment in that one child, but it's investment in the state. Parents, their investment in reading with kids, teaching them to read, it is an investment in their life, but also it's an investment in, we say we want to change the world, it does. Those little things can help change society.
Absolutely. Well, let's try to bring this home here. When we look at this study, we want to make a 10-point increase. That is the goal. When you try to quantify that in 2 years, how realistic is that for us to meet that goal, and how long could that take?
Yeah, so that's a great question. I think I would point to, there's really 2 states that I think exemplify what Oklahoma would want to look like, say 10 years from now. Or if we start with all the pre-K students that start this summer, what do we want things to look like roughly, for them 12 or 13 years later? And so those 2 states would be Mississippi and Florida, I'd say. Those 2 states did a number of things that focused on really focusing on phonics and based instruction, or what's known as the science of reading. And then with that, training teachers both through our higher education system and then on-the-job training in schools. And then also, adequately compensating teachers for the hard work. And then I think it can't be missed what Ed said. I've got 5 daughters of my own, is that the role that guardians, parents, and volunteers play, they play a significant role in helping students gain reading acumen and becoming a strong reader. And I think if we would focus on those things, we would notice a pretty significant change. The good news is that Oklahoma, for a time, actually made an attempt to better focus on reading, and we saw some pretty significant gains. But then there were some obstacles that were faced not long after that, and unfortunately, lawmakers and some leaders in the state decided to retract from our reading sufficiency efforts. And so that's one of the reasons why we've seen the declines. So I think we've seen that even when Oklahoma for a little bit, but then also states like Mississippi and Florida, two vastly different states, they've shown a way for us to be able to attain that higher graduation rate with focused work, but with not having to reinvent the wheel.
Sure, and sustain.
Right,
Also,
exactly.
you get there and let's stay there so we can
Exactly.
continue to be high performing. If you had one message for lawmakers, business leaders, families that are listening or watching this today, what would you say about why increasing graduation rates should matter to them personally?
Yeah, what I think I'd say, and then give Ed a chance, what I would say, what a high school diploma really represents. It represents the effort that has been put in by the student, their parents or guardian, whoever that is, and then teachers and school leaders to equip that person with the basic educational skills that are giving them the best chance to thrive in our state and then our country as a whole. That's really what a high school diploma represents, is gaining those skills that you mentioned that are never going to leave you, that you're going to have for the rest of your life, and that give you lots of options to choose the specific career you want or the specific job you want, and then all the things that come from the benefits of work.
Absolutely.
Well, I think one of the main messages is that investing in education is investing in Oklahoma, and I think that's what we really need to know. I see an importance of a partnership among schools, policymakers, and parents even, that the schools should be, and they are, we have some really good, everybody complains about the schools. We have some really good schools in Oklahoma.
That can't be
We have
overstated.
some really, really good teachers. And they get beat up a lot, because we're number 50. But it takes a village, it takes a state to work together. And I think the schools are working towards making their curriculum more college ready, more career ready, more life ready. In this day and time, you need to be able to adapt to the rapid changes in society. And I think our schools are starting to do that. Policymakers need to make sure that they are funded well enough to do that, that our teachers are compensated so that they will stay, the good teachers will stay. The good teachers, the ones that are better, or whose students are better performing, well, they are also rewarded for that. And also, as Jonathan said, it starts at home.
Yeah.
Parents set the foundation. And so everybody has a part to play. One of the things that OKEII, we keep saying that we want to change the mindset. Well, that's exactly what we want to do. We want to change the way people think about education, because investing, whether it's time or money in education, is an investment in the entire future of Oklahoma. I mentioned the roads and bridges. Actually, if you drive through the U.S., you can, when you hit a certain border, you can sometimes tell
Yeah.
about the entire state by their roads and everything. Well, investing in
Great
education,
metaphor.
investing in education is going to help those bridges and roads, and it's going to help everything that we do.
It's important infrastructure.
Yeah.
It's part of what makes us whole. Well, Mr. Small, Dr. Harris, thank you so much for sharing your insights today and helping us unpack what these numbers really mean for Oklahoma's future. I think it's an exciting time to be in our state, and there's a lot of reason to hope. I know we turn on the news a lot. It's a lot of negativity, a lot of challenges, and not to even discount that. They are there. But there's also a lot of momentum that is building, and that's what this podcast is for. So thank you all so much for coming on today.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Well, if there's one takeaway from today's conversation, I hope it is this: graduation isn't just about a diploma. Again, it is about opportunity. It's about workforce strength, economic growth, public safety, and the long-term health of all of our communities. An increase from 80 to 90% isn't just a statistic that represents thousands of lives changed each year and a stronger Oklahoma for generations to come, which is the goal, right? I want to thank everyone for joining us today for this episode of Beyond the Bell. If you found this conversation valuable, be sure to share it and continue your discussion in your communities. Education affects all of us, and we're so happy that you're a part of it. We'll see you next time.